Welcome to Unmasking Dementia Lived Experiences, a podcast featuring families who have navigated the challenges of caring for loved ones with dementia. Through heartfelt stories, we delve into trials, triumphs, and wisdom gained along the way. My name is Christiana Egi. I'm a registered nurse, dementia advocate, author of children's book specializing in dementia education, owner of reputable memory care facilities in Toronto, Canada, as well as the founder of a Rose for Grandma Wellness Hub, a charitable organization that caters to the needs of communities of Black, Indigenous, and people of color facing the challenges of dementia. While each journey is unique, sharing experiences offers strength and encouragement. Professionals will light our way towards care, management, and possibly prevention of dementia. Join us as we raise awareness, offer support, and empower the people that are going through the challenges of dementia, and will unravel the complexities of dementia together. So tonight, I'm excited to introduce my very good friend, June, a remarkable woman who epitomizes the true essence of love and compassion. See, during the very difficult times of my life, about 5 years ago, when I lost my husband, June was going through the challenges of dementia with her mom as well. But she stepped out of her own trials and she came to me with another mutual friend one day to surprise me. So they came with an offer that I could not refuse. They offered to help me plant my garden. They don't live in the same neighborhood, so it did not look that bad. It's just out of the goodness of their hearts. Like June is that person that loves to give. And it's very impactful when you are going through difficult times and you find a time or you find it in your heart to offer help to somebody else. And so that was exactly what they did for me and still goes on for these years that we've been together. And another thing that happened, one summer Sunday, I was at church and I was somehow ambushed by grief. If you've been through grief, you know that sometimes you do get these times that just crawl up on you. So I was just sitting down and suddenly I had flashes of my wedding day and the christening of my children. And then the flash went to my husband's casket laying in front of the altar. I was completely overwhelmed. When I left church, I reached out to the children, and of course, they, rallied around me with love and support. And so I went on. I felt a little bit better. I went home. What do you know? June showed up that evening with 2 lovely baskets of hanging flowers. And she said she was in the Niagara Falls area. She saw these beautiful plants and thought of me. Can you imagine that? That really made me feel so good. So this is to say that, we never know what people are going through. It is so important to try to reach out to others, especially when you know that you have friends or family that are on the dementia journey. It is so important, to reach out, offer to go sit with a loved one while the caregiver goes for a walk, or bring home-cooked meal, or even order food or groceries for them, because I know we all have busy lives. You never know what someone is going through, and you may be just the breath of sunshine that person needs. So thank you so much, June. I do appreciate everything you've done along the way. So June is a mother of 4 and the only child of a remarkable woman, a nurse whose passion for work was matched only by her strength and confidence. Her mother led a life of independence and privacy, embodying resilience in every aspect. Little did they know the subtle signs of dementia was already weaving their way into their lives. Camouflaged amidst her daily routine, it wasn't until that fateful day when she ventured out into the cold, only to become disoriented and lost. That was when the harsh reality of her condition unveiled itself. That pivotal incident catapulted the family into an unforeseen journey, one fraught with uncertainty and emotional turmoil. From navigating the bewildering landscape of retirement homes to the heart-wrenching decisions surrounding nursing care, each encounter with the healthcare system served as a poignant reminder of the fragility of life. Denial often masked the severity of the situation, but as the weight of her mother's illness became undeniable, June found herself grappling with feelings of frustration, doubt, and guilt. Actually, our mutual friend Peggy, she raves about June. She tells me she has never encountered a daughter as loving, caring, determined, and dedicated as June. She tells me the level of care that she showed her mother is unparalleled. And I'm telling you, June did a lot for her mother, and she is going to share some of her story with us. Professionally, however, she's a senior manager across many disciplines over the past 30 years plus, though she doesn't look a day older than 30. She has a degree. She has a degree in economics and a background in accounting with a strong technology awareness and partnership. She has been a project manager, held several managerial roles in finance, third-party risk management, and currently a director in contract management in a large financial organization. She's also a strong advocate for the Black community. She has a website which aims to bring information to the Black community to empower and enable this community that needs so much information, especially around dementia.
Yes.
Well,
I'll have to,
and
thank you. I'll have to make sure that that's a highlighted part of my website. Thank you so much, Christiana, for that tremendous introduction. It's humbling. Before I actually get into anything, though, I think everyone needs to know just the kind of person you are. Kind to the deepest depth. I think that I've encountered anyone. You're the one who goes out of your way just to be so nice to folks. So I think it's reciprocated. I'm spirit-led. You talk about the incidents in which I came to you to help. There's just an inner voice that speaks to me that said I needed to go. And so I followed that voice. And so I just think it's all the great things that you've done that God speaks through other people and come to you at the time that you need them. So I don't take much credit for me showing up at your door. It's the voice that was inside my head that said I needed to go and see you.
Thank you for listening to that voice, because those were two, because I'm a very positive person, I sort of handle things really well, but those 2 days that you did come to me were really difficult days for me. So thank you. I'm glad God used you and you said yes.
So. Yep, and I pray for him to use me in whatever way he sees fit. So be careful what you pray for. He's listening.
Yeah. So anyway, getting to your journey with your mother. Yes. Tell us about your experience with dementia. Like you had one drastic introduction or impact of that
Yeah.
disease, but I'm sure there were other subtle things that you had missed or something along the way. So tell us your whole experience, not everything at once, but
Yeah.
how you coped and how it impacted yourself and your family.
I think my mom was the last person I thought would get dementia. She had that, I called it elephant memory. She would remember things from her childhood. She talks so much about her grandmother and all the positive experience. She just loved that woman with all her heart and soul. And so all the details and the very vibrant description she portrays of her was incredible. So when dementia actually came knocking at our door, it wasn't something that I would recognize. In fact, I didn't really know much about dementia. So the beginning of this journey with my mom was really one of discovery, was shock, disappointment, guilt, advocacy at the end of the day. So I didn't know much, and I think I had to start learning a lot. So what you're doing today for folks is so tremendously important. I think I rationalized a lot of the things. I rationalized the fact that her bills weren't being paid on time and she would call and they're going to cut off her phone. I rationalized the fact that she left the pot in the stove and at one point the fire department had to be called. She was living in a condo by herself. I rationalized the fact that one particular day when I was taking her home, she was a cancer patient. So I was coming back home from the hospital with her. And as I was entering her street, she said, I came here the other day and I didn't know where I was. And I'm looking back at it now and I should have seen the signs, but I didn't. Now, I rationalize it all away, but there was a pivotal point that took me on this journey of realization that something is really wrong. She got lost, and a good Samaritan actually found her on the road, on the street, at a time when the weather was cold and she wasn't appropriately dressed. So he took her in, he went on social media and found my son, who then called me and said, grandmother is over by this stranger. Anyway, long story short, she ended up in the hospital a bit frostbitten. And in that encounter, the social worker at the time at the hospital said she cannot be on her own any longer. So that now took me into, it's my gosh, it's a bit of a shock. So I had to immediately look for a caregiver to come. I was at that point trying to bring somebody into the condo with her so she could stay in her own space. And I think the sticker shock of that experience was undeniable that this is not sustainable. I can't afford to pay someone around the clock to be with her in her own place. So I took her home, and she was with me for under a year. And during that time, I enrolled her in Memory and Company. Now, Memory and Company is this organization that's partnering with universities to study dementia and trying to slow down the progression of dementia. And it was actually a great organization, but they're short term in terms of the time you spend with them. It wasn't a long-term facility where she could stay for a long time. So I was looking for other alternatives, and that led me to looking at numerous retirement homes. At that time, she wasn't really ready for what I thought was long-term facility, so I looked for a retirement home and must have looked at over a dozen all across the greater Toronto area, and then finally landed on one that was close to her condo. And maybe it was a mistake because she saw her condo every day and wanted to leave the facility. Anyways, she was there. She was a nurse, so she actually acted as a nurse in that facility. Many people didn't even realize she was a resident there. And it wasn't until one day she disappeared. She was gone for 19 hours. There was a command post set up in the shopping plaza. I was handing out flyers. I was on CP24, appealing for people to um, see if they find her. We'll put her picture up. 19 hours later, the police found her pretty close to where she used to work as a nurse.
Mm.
That's the thing with dementia, is that there's this memory for that to take them back almost en route, through route, to take them back to the place that they're used to. When she came back, and I said, "Oh, so how did you feel? Were you afraid when you were lost?" And she's like, "I was not lost." My mom is one of those. She talks as if she's British. I was not lost. So she didn't think she was lost, but it was one of those very um, heart-wrenching moments. And at that point, she then was labeled as wandering. She could no longer stay in that facility. So the journey then started for long-term care. And that's a whole different experience. Looking at long-term care, reading all the reviews and which one is the best long-term care. I ended up with one that was close to home, had great ratings. Because she was classified as wandering, they wanted to put her in a lockdown area. And it's like I didn't really have much choice at that point, it seemed. So I reluctantly left her there, but shortly after her being there, they realized she wasn't going to survive on that floor. So I had to move her into a more normalized space, but she flourished in. And she was there for a good while, again, acting as a nurse, and they actually encouraged her to go around with them as a nurse. She was thinking that they were her patient, and they loved her for doing that. The pivotal point in that relationship happened when one of the residents assaulted her. And then nobody believed her, and she was very angry. Now with my mom, because she relayed what happened on a daily basis with such vividness that I sometimes thought she was misdiagnosed. The things that maybe make it look as if she was dementia was the nesting. So she would take everything out of the drawers and put it on the bed. She would tuck little things into tissue boxes and things like that. So it was quite a journey. The nursing home episode left a stain on my heart and my brain. It was not a good experience. And then COVID came and made that a nightmarish experience. And during that time, she lost her speech. So she lost her ability to walk. And one fateful day, someone from the nursing home called and said, "June," it's almost like she yelled at me. Like, it wasn't a yell. It's like she commanded, "You have to come now and take your mother out of this place."
Wow.
And so I didn't hesitate. It's like a command that I could not resist. So I called up one of these companies that, and they're like an evac. Like, I couldn't use the regular transportation. And it really was a time when I wasn't really even supposed to take her out because it was COVID. But they allowed me to take her out. She didn't have COVID. People were dying around her. That was one of the reasons that I got the call. She came home with me, got the place not set up appropriately at that point. But the day after she came home, because she looked malnourished, during COVID, people really suffered in those nursing homes because the caregivers were sick. They had part-time workers coming in. My mom was hard to feed, so I don't think she was eating. So when she came home, the day after, I was feeding her, and she passed out. And that was terrifying. So got her to the hospital. She was in there for a month. The worst part of the journey happened after the hospital, because while she was there for a month, she developed bed sore, which just took her down a path that was point of no return. So for me, the dementia was not the most difficult part of it. The most difficult part was dealing with wound care, the system, and a whole host of other issues, which makes me now the advocate, but I need to be. After she passed, I said I was going to write a book. I still plan to do it.
Yeah, you should. You should still do that. You see, the thing about dementia is it's not that it's a new thing, but it's something that is not talked about much. And like you said, you did not know what was happening, the little things. Sometimes families, especially, even sometimes family will enable their loved ones when they're going through things, and the denial, not accepting, you were rationalizing.
Yeah,
So the important thing about this podcast is when other people that are going through this journey hear about experiences of other guests, or even people that are not on the journey yet, when something
exactly.
starts to happen, they'll be able to catch on more quickly. So that is why I'm bringing this out, so that people can hear and learn from other
Mhm.
people's experiences. Because dementia is so difficult to diagnose in the beginning. A lot of
Mhm.
people will say, in hindsight, my mom did
Yeah,
this, dad did that. I didn't know, and
yeah,
sometimes to the individual that is going through the process themselves, they cover up, right?
yeah,
Like, oh,
exactly.
mom
Yeah,
says she's going to the grocery store to get maybe vegetables. She comes
yeah,
back and no vegetables. She go, oh, I changed my mind, because they're trying. They also, and that initial part is really, really tricky. But it's
yeah,
really important to just be more tuned into that, especially when you've heard things other people have talked about, and just seek help.
yeah,
It's better to err in error, right? Like, if you're not sure, go to the doctor, let them try. And there's the Gain clinics in the Scarborough Health Network where you can actually refer yourself or refer your family member to those clinics to get assessed. So I guess the more we talk about dementia, the more it'll become a household name, and then the more people will learn about the little things that we sort of overlook. But by the
yeah,
same token, I want to say, if you're misplacing your keys and you know you've misplaced your key, that's not a sign of dementia, because like someone loses their key, oh, are you developing dementia? It's actually not a joke. It's nothing to laugh about, but when you are actually experiencing dementia, you won't even realize that you've lost your keys. That's the
yeah.
difference, right?
That's
So,
good to know
mhm.
because I keep like losing my keys and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm starting my dementia journey.
Really.
Yeah,
So, caring for your mother, it's emotionally really tasking when you've seen this independent woman that, was so how would I put it, so hardworking and, just resilient and determined and everything. And she was a caregiver. Now the caregiver is the care receiver. How did
hmm.
that make you feel? And did you remember to put on your own oxygen mask? Did you remember your own self-care at that time?
You know, I think when you're going through these things, you don't even think about it necessarily. To me, it was like it's almost like you're in a war. You're just fighting to get through and survive. And many folks, like our friend Peggy, would say, "Oh, you're such a hero or saint or whatever the word is." And I didn't feel like that. In fact, it didn't feel like I was deserving of any praise. It's just, you just do what you have to do. It is emotionally taxing, but I think I didn't feel the weight of the impact of the emotion until I had stepped out of it. And then it felt, it, yeah, it felt like you've been through a battle. Um, having said that, there were folks there. I had friends who I could bounce things off and vent when things weren't going properly. And so I had that as my resource, so to speak. But it was an emotional journey. I wouldn't wish this disease on anybody.
It is.
It is
It's a
exhausting.
devastating disease, especially watching your loved one forget who you are, and so
Yeah.
forth.
And
So
she
you
couldn't even speak, which is one of the things was hard to deal with.
you mentioned about friends being sort of your resource, being one of the ways that you had some sort of resource or some help or whatever. Were there any community organizations that you could turn to? Were there was there anyone in the community who actually sort of was a sounding board for you, like a professional that you could talk to, or somebody who could guide you, or maybe, just give you advice on what to do? Oh,
Um, it there were some. I mean, in the initial stage I mentioned, Memory and Company. I think the folks there were really really good in terms of talking about dementia and trying to kind of mitigate some of the the detrimental decline or shorten it, lessen it. So those were folks that were good to talk to. Um, there were organizations like Help for Mom that I would call and ask for information. They were more to set up care. So they were a good resource in terms of navigating the care that I would need and who to speak to and so on. The community care had some resource, but I found I was fighting with them more than they were giving me help. Um, I think it would have been nice to know all the resources that were available to me in the community. I don't think going through it, you're so focused on getting through it, sometimes there's not time to look for where the help is. And I think in my case, that may have been some of the shortcomings that I mean, for yourself, I know I spoke to you as a support and a friend, but beyond those, I didn't really have any formal group support group that I could go and speak to.
There's a lot of shame and stigma around dementia.
Mm.
As a woman of color,
Yeah,
did
it's
you
yeah.
feel that you had to either hide it or you did not feel comfortable discussing it with a lot of your friends? Or how did you feel?
No, I think I'm from a different generation. I know my mom, if she knew I had told anyone about it, she would be devastated. It's probably good that she was in a dementia state and she couldn't, she didn't know I was telling other folks. When she was going through her cancer journey, I couldn't tell anybody. There was no support because she admonished me for no one is supposed to know that she's sick. For me, it wasn't that stigma. I I spoke about it, and I seek help where I could get help. So sickness to me is not something that I think I need to hide from anyone. I share, and I find in sharing, there's so many other folks who are going through similar situation that sharing actually brings about some sense of relief and some sense that I'm not really alone.
Yeah.
Because I spoke to folks at work and it's like, yeah, my mom's going through that, or my dad's going through that, or my dad went through it. It was hell. And so there's that kind of informal support by just organically sharing with other folks. But I know there are formal organizations out there that can step in.
Okay, that's good. And then after you went through all this, I mean, I know you had to do a lot, like you said, with in terms of home care, because you tried your best to get your mom's pressure sore healed. You
Mhm.
did a lot, and I know you were always, present. Um, challenges with wound care nurses and so forth. You
Oh, Lord.
you
Yeah.
were at the forefront advocating for your mother. In As you reflect back, what are some of the insights or lessons that you learned that you think people listening to us could benefit from?
Definitely be an advocate. Even when they're telling you, like, get out of here kind of thing, they may not say it like that, but advocacy isn't always welcomed in these settings. I advocated in the hospital for them not. They wanted me to almost terminate her life. She lasted a year after they said, let her die. So advocate for life. As a religious Christian person, I couldn't have lived with myself if I had gone with, we'll just kind of medicate her until she passed. Couldn't do that. So advocate. I I had them do the feeding tube because she wasn't taking things orally. Um, and she just blossomed after she actually got some nutrients in her, even though they tell me it's going to be painful, it's going to be infected. And I could teach people right now on how to do feeding tubes. I could do wound care. I probably could be certified as a wound care specialist. But lessons learned is it's the system is understaffed. The people are overtaxed with clients, so you're not getting the kind of care that you really should get. I found it so frustrating, even when you get the hour that folks they're sending somebody to Newmarket and you're in Toronto and it's a 20-minute drive, but you only have an hour, and so they can only stay with you in those short periods. So lessons learned, you have to complement or supplement the care that's being given or offered by the community with your own care. And I know it's hard because it's costly to pay for care, but it's something that I think we as folks getting older have to put into our plan. It's almost a retirement plan where we need to plan for being sick. And dementia I think it's an epidemic. There's
Yeah,
so
it
many
is a
people.
global epidemic. It is.
Epidemic. It's insane that so many people suffer from it, and it's not really curable. So many of us are going to go down that path. So be
Actually,
prepared.
on the contrary, science is not,
Actually, yeah.
you know,
I'll let you speak on that one.
yeah, like we now hearing about things like Alzheimer's, which is the one that has no cure, and they're now calling that a type 3 diabetes, right?
That
So
was shocking to hear.
yes. So there's a lot of things about self-care and lifestyle changes. Apparently, up to 40% of uh, the you can prevent Alzheimer's up to 40% of the time. And then the other one, like as you know, I write children's books, right?
Right.
Vascular dementia is one also, and even because they are referring to Alzheimer's as type 3 diabetes, it's also a vascular disease.
Right.
So if you are able to mitigate vascular diseases like high blood pressure, diabetes, high blood cholesterol, stuff like that, and
Mm-hmm.
like a lot goes into a healthy lifestyle. Sleep is important. Stress management is important. Community. There's so many
Yes.
have to do. So that is why there's a lot of talk about dementia. I like to talk about the preventative aspect of it. What can we do to make
Mm-hmm.
sure we don't develop this disease, right? So I'm sure that there's a lot that can be done, and as science continues to expand, I'm sure there'll be more and more. I was talking to my cousin in Australia, which is a doctor at one of the hospitals. They're actually developing an app that can help people detect even 20 years in advance,
Oh, wow.
have, the risk for dementia. And I said, please, when you complete it, let's have some, so a lot is,
Yes, yes.
and more and more, dementia is coming to the limelight.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, it's growing at an outstanding rate. Like, I mean, it's the research out there, especially even from the Alzheimer's of Canada, where we are going from 500 and something thousand to over 1 million in just 6 years. So we really need to tighten our seatbelts, do what we can
Yeah.
for ourselves, and also be more proactive with our loved ones when we start to see signs and symptoms, because early detection is very important. There are medications that can prolong stages of this disease, and
Yeah.
also be very familiar with your numbers, because you can develop little strokes from vascular diseases that will lead to vascular dementia. But the good thing about vascular dementia, if you can say that, is that once you mitigate that problem, the damage stops. It does not continue. You cannot regrow the brain cells, but you can prevent more damage from happening. It's like at Alexis Lodge, I've had two people that have been living with us for 20 years. One of them, who is a school teacher,
Mhm.
he hasn't changed much. And the other day, I went to him and I said, do you remember what an eclipse is? And he went ahead and told me exactly what it is, right? I was so happy. I'm like, yes. So there's so much more that can be done for people with dementia. The other thing is that people often think, oh, you get a dementia diagnosis is the end of life. You can't do
Mm.
anything anymore, but it's not
Yeah.
true. There's still much
Right.
to be lived, and the goal is to support people and help them to live good quality of life. Let's try to eradicate that stigma that hangs around old age, ageism,
Mhm.
dementia, mental illness, all these things. Like, let's, be more open, let's understand the disease more, because especially with some seniors, they think it's something that they can catch. So they're scared. They don't want, so, but if we understand it, then we are able to be more sensitive and
Mhm.
respectful of people, and be able to provide activities, stimulation, keeping the mind active, keeps the mind going, right? So,
Exactly.
and I think yes, when I did my last podcast, I was talking to a lady, just for you with your website and bringing information to the Black community. We need to talk about this more in the BIPOC communities. And that
Oh
is,
my goodness. Yeah.
I started a Russell Grammar Wellness Hub. We need to talk about it. Nobody subscribes to dementia. Disease is nothing to hide. It's like, yeah, even if you're
Exactly.
hiding that disease, when the person dies, can you still hide it? No, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
So
Yeah.
speak up. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Let's see what we can do. Let's join hands, together and
Mhm.
see how we can unravel dementia.
Sure.
Because we
Sure.
definitely can unmask it. And when something is no longer hidden, like the saying goes, a problem known is half solved, right? So when we
Yes.
know what it is, when we know some signs, and they are different with everybody. Like, but
Yeah.
I hear from you, I hear from someone else, and maybe my loved ones is in between, but I will still
Mhm.
get some ideas from what I've heard.
Exactly.
And,
Exactly.
and, and people tend to want to listen to someone that has had similar experience to them.
Mhm.
It's like when you don't know what you're talking about, people don't want to listen to you. But you, with your impression, experience, and just listening to what you went through, I'm sure that one or two persons would
Oh yeah. Would
resonate with them and will impact them in one way or the other. So,
no, 100%. And I think you've talked about a lot of the lessons that need to be learned. And one of them, of course, is what you're doing here right now, is to educate yourself. Educate yourself before dementia comes hitting on your door, because, as you say, it probably could be preventable. And a few other things. Know your parents' affairs.
Oh, yeah.
Like know what's going on with them. I mean, trying to find out where things are after they're not all there is not good. I mean, for me, even insurance lapsed because I didn't realize what was happening. Um, Within our community, talking about death is like, oh, so you want to see me die or something.
It's taboo. Yes.
It's a taboo, right? We don't talk about it. But one of the hardest thing was decide, would she want to continue like that? Should I listen to the doctor and let her die? Like, do I do DNR? Like, all these things that are going through your head. What should I do? What would they have liked to do? How do they want to be cremated? Do they want to be buried? Like, we never talked about any of those
Living
things.
will, POA,
Yeah,
all these things as well.
all those things. Yeah,
Once
power
you
of
are
attorney. Oh,
20, 30, you should have one. Not even, you
yeah,
don't,
you should have. Yeah, exactly.
so that someone can look after your affair.
And look
Because
after
trying
you
to
in your
get those banking things changed and all the
after.
legal documents, it's so
It's
difficult
it's very difficult.
and costly too.
And costly. So those, yeah, you really need to get involved. It's hard because my mom was very private, and sometimes even asking about those things I was fearful to,
Mhm.
to
You are
ask, right?
comfortable because
You're uncomfortable.
know, right?
And this
Yeah.
doesn't matter how old you are. I think with your parents, you always feel like a child. And so broaching those subjects were not things I thought about doing, but in hindsight, I should have, even though it would have been hard.
Mm-hmm. So
Yeah.
this is good for all of us, and those of us that are parents, be a little bit more open with our children.
Exactly. I mean, for my daughter, I said, okay, I need to put you on all my accounts. I trust her. I need to be on my account because there are also tax implications. And that's the other thing. Talk to lawyers, talk to tax accountants and so on to see how your estate is going to impact your loved ones. Sometimes there's debt to pay and inheritance and all that, so you need to have those discussions.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That is awesome. Thank you so much. It's been
you're very welcome.
interesting, and again, I applaud you for the care that you gave to your mom, and I know, like the young ones were looking on, so
Yeah,
you
hopefully they'll do
you've
the same.
already ensured your old age.
I truly hope so.
Dementia free. And so I do hope that everyone out there that is listening to us do take this seriously. Don't hide. If you have questions, if you suspect something, please seek professional help. There's help out there. There are lots of resources. It may be tasking for older people that are not technology savvy to find some of these resources. And that is one of those things that we're trying to do with a Rose for Grandma Wellness Hub, to bring resources to primary care health centers, family doctors, community centers. And that's why I started writing children's books, so that from as early as elementary school age, people will know. Because in one of my books, like I think I've mentioned, it was a granddaughter who had heard about dementia from another classmate that actually pointed the family into the right direction to find a suitable home for the grandma. So, like, children should be talked to about dementia. It should not be hidden. It's a family disease. It's not just an
Right.
individual disease, and as a matter of fact, impacts the whole community. Because when children don't know what's happening because of secrecy, especially in the BIPOC communities, they internalize
Yeah.
the feelings. They start to think grandma or grandpa doesn't love them anymore. They start to think, something is going on. No one is talking to me. No one loves me. Sometimes even they can develop anxiety, aggressive behaviors, and even as serious as developing depression. So let's, be open and discuss dementia and look for ways and work together to prevent it. So thank you so much, John, for joining me this evening. And I hope that we'll continue to do our best to unmask dementia. So
Thank you very much. All the best. And
you. and
Continued success.